All right, so I'm going to cover how to model doors. Okay, now it should be fairly simple and straightforward. We're going to model this door, the front door here. We also have the other door to model over here on this side, and it's going to be like a door slash a window. And then I want to go in and show you how to kind of do a door trim along all of the interior doors. Okay, so those are the three things we're going to cover. Now, I've already modeled out the door that I want to recreate or that I want to create inside here. Okay. And like everything in Rhino, there's multiple ways of creating these objects, right? So I'm going to use one way, which is kind of creating the solid and then doing the Boolean difference to cut out the openings, and then we'll go ahead and insert the glass. Okay. However, I will say that there is a slightly faster way, slightly easier way of creating this same door, but I'm not going to show you how to do it. You should at this point know how to use the commands that we've already covered so far to create this door in a different manner, right? And this other way should be slightly faster. I want you guys to go ahead and start thinking, can you be creative with the commands that you already have experience with? Okay. So if you want to give that a shot, take a look at this and think, well, how can I do this? Okay. Again, I'm going to go ahead and show a different method using the Boolean difference just because I think we need some practice with the Boolean difference. Now, sometimes it's a lot easier to just model on the ground or model separately and then move it into place, especially when we're working like three-dimensionally. Um, the walls get in the way and you start having to deal with the orbiting and it just gets a little bit messier. So we're going to go ahead and model this door on the ground plane over here. So that means I'm going to go into my top view. Okay. Now the size of the door is going to be, let's use the distance tool. It's going to be 7 feet by 3 feet. So I'm going to go ahead and come over here and draw a rectangle. Now remember the first number that we enter is always along the red axis. So I'm going to want to go, let's go 7 feet this way. 7 feet, enter, by 3 feet, enter. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to extrude curve, and I'm going to bring this up 2 inches. That's going to be the thickness of my door. Now remember that when we do the extrusion, you select that solid is equal to yes, because we do want it as a solid. Next, I want to do what we call the stiles, or the rails, essentially all of this part that's not glass on the door. So I'm going to use the rectangle tool. I'm going to go on planar because I want to make sure that I draw on the top plane here. Okay, then I'll come around to the other side on my top view and click. Now I have a set of lines at the top level. I'm going to use these lines and I'm going to offset them in 4 inches and we're going to go inward. Okay. Then I'm going to create another set of curves or a rectangle. Starting here, and this one is just going to be 12 inches by whatever that distance is. So let's go 12 inches and then, sorry, I hit 12 inches and then enter. And then I'll go ahead and just move the cursor up here. I actually don't know what that distance is. I could do the math, 36 inches minus 4 inches minus another 4 inches. That makes it 28 inches, but it's a lot easier to just click right there on that curve. Okay. And now that I have that, now that I have this curve, I'm going to go ahead and copy this over to this side. Okay. And now I could go ahead and delete that set of curves because I don't need that rectangle. I'll be able to use these 2 rectangles to set the distance, to kind of use as the 4 inches all the way around. Okay, so I want to equally space this rectangle or equally space the other rectangles inside. So what I'm going to do is use the line tool. I'm going to draw a line from the midpoint to the other midpoint. Enter. And then I'll select the curve, and I could use this command called divide. So I could divide this line up into however many segments I want to. So let's hit divide. Okay. And here, remember the last segment. So it's 4 segments. I want to divide it into 4 segments. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So sorry, this is a segment. 1, 2, 3, 4. Essentially, what I'm looking for are these points. These points are going to act as the midpoint for my rectangle. So I'll just hit enter. Now select this rectangle, and I'm going to copy this over, and I'm going to go from one point to the next point. Oh, it doesn't want to snap, and that's because point is not selected. So let's go ahead and select this point. Now I'll go ahead and click there, click, and click. And there we have it. We can go ahead and select this line and delete it. Actually, I'm going to do a cross window, a solid cross window, not a dashed one, a solid cross window all across, just to delete all those points. And then I'll go ahead and turn off the points off my O snaps. Okay, so now what we have is an extrusion. It's going to be our door. And then I have these these 5 rectangles. I'm going to go ahead and select each rectangle, holding down the shift key. And notice that it always wants to, it's always asking me which one do I select, the extrusion or the curve. So we're going to select the curve. And then I'll hold down the shift key again and select. All right. So now with all of these selected, I'm going to use the extrude curve command. Make sure solid is set to yes. And then I'm just going to click down. Doesn't matter what the distance is. I just need to make sure that it goes through past um, this object, the what's going to be my door, right? Now I'm going to go ahead and select each one, holding down the shift key. I'm just going to move it up just a little bit, just to make sure that it's going past the actual door. I guess we'll call it a door frame. Okay. And now I'm going to use the Boolean difference to punch out these holes. So I'll select this. I will come over here and use the Boolean difference. I could click over here. I could also just do a cross window right there using my front view, and then I'll hit enter. And now we have our door frame. What I'm going to do next is just use the rectangle tool. We got to do the windows or the glass on the inside. And I'm going to do a rectangle from there to there. I'll select this curve. Actually, you know what? I already had a curve there from the original one. So now I have 2 curves. We'll go ahead and take this and I will extrude curve. And I'm going to go up 1/2 an inch. Okay. We'll select this massing here. Actually, you know what? And let's go into ghosted view. Notice how when I just zoom in once, it zooms way in, and now I've lost it. So I have to zoom back out, but I still need to get closer. So again, using our zoom selection tool, I'm going to just select the object and then click this, and then that's going to reorient the camera around this object. And so now I should be able to zoom in a lot more. Okay, so I'll go ahead and select the glass, and I'm going to use the move command because I want to move this. Well, not V, move. And I'm going to grab it from the midpoint and bring it straight down to the middle, just like that. Okay. And I can get out of shaded view now. Now, I can do the same thing, extrude, move, and all that. But since this is already there, and all of these are going to be the same, I can actually just select this, copy, and then just grab it at one point that is going to be the constant point every single time that I'm going to click. So there, there, and there. By the way, that's not the trick that I was referring to make this faster. But there we have it. Now what I want to do is, actually what I'm going to do is create a layer. called doors. Create another one that's called door glass. And then we'll create another one that's called door frame. And I'm going to create another one that's called door trim. Okay. I'm going to put all of these inside this door layer. So I'm going to click and drag, click, oops, click and drag, select this, click and drag. Let's get back onto the default layer. I want that checkbox up here. And then the door glass, I want to change this color to just a blue. And I'll go ahead and select, holding down the shift key, select all 5 pieces of the glass, right click, and then change object layer. And then I'll select the frame here, and I will right click and then change object layer. Okay. And then what I'll do is I'll select everything again, not the curve, just the surfaces. And I'm going to group this as one object. So I typed in group and enter. Okay. And there we have it. At this point, I can just rotate this. I could come over here and rotate, use the rotate tool. I could also just use the gumball since I have it selected and it's turned on over here. And I'll go along this green arc, click, and I'm just going to type in 90, enter. And now we've rotated it. All I have to do now is grab this door and move it from the midpoint to the midpoint. But in order to do that, I'm going to have to go into into the ghosted view. And we're done with the floor with the top view. So I'm going to just select this, go into perspective mode, and then use the move command and go from midpoint all the way over here to midpoint, right there, just like that. Let's go ahead and go into shaded view. And there we have it. I could go ahead and delete these lines. I could put those into the lines layer as well if I needed to, but I'm not sure if we're ever going to have to change this door, or if so, it's going to be easier. I'm going to have to make a lot of edits anyway, so it'd probably be faster to just start over. And I'm going to go ahead and delete that. All right. So there we have our first door. Okay. Now you are welcome to design your own front door as well. Don't feel like you have to do this organization or this layout either. But we do want some sort of glass. I don't want you just going the easy route and just extruding a 2-inch rectangle and calling it a day. Okay. All right. Now coming over here, I'm gonna go ahead. Notice how now I'm like it's really hard. I'm trying to zoom in and it's a bit difficult. So I'm going to just do a cross window around this area and then just go to zoom selected. There we go. Okay. So what I'm gonna want to do is have one exterior door with a glass panel, followed by one big picture window, right? And so that's what I'm going to model. Now, we do need a post, a very thin kind of frame post right down the middle or in between the door and the picture window. Okay, so what I'm going to do is actually, again, there's a couple different things we can do. So this is where you have to get creative. We essentially need a rectangle. We could extrude it up, and then we need to move it 3 feet away, right? One of the things I can do, let's go this route. We're going to use the rectangle tool. We'll go vertical. And I know that this post is going to have to be the same thickness as the wall and the same height. So I can actually just use the outline here of this shape because it's going to be the same exact shape, and use a rectangle vertical and then go up. And then I can just select this and move this. I'm going to click from this corner and have it go all the way over here. And I said that the exterior doors are 3 feet, so I'm going to move this out 3 feet. enter. Not sure if that did it right. Let me just double check. Distance from there to there, 30 feet, yeah. And now this piece here, I'm just going to use extrude curve, and I'm just going to make this 2 inches. Okay, and there we have that mullion or that frame. All right, so now I'm going to work on the door. And the door essentially, actually both door and window are essentially going to be what we have here, except with the little decorative mullion. So what I'm going to do is use the rectangle tool. Okay. We're going to go vertical, and I'm going to go from the midpoint all the way to this midpoint, and then go straight up. Actually, I shouldn't have gone from mid to mid, but we'll see what happens. Okay, so we have that, and now I will offset this. We're going to offset this going inward. Let's also keep it at the 4 inches. All right, so again, watch where your cursor is. Okay, this might be easier if I go into one of my views, say my front view, where I could actually see what's going on. And then I'll just click on the inside. Okay, and now I can select the 2 lines again, holding down the Shift key, and then I use extrude curve. I'm going to go out 2 inches, and there we have it. And then what I'll do is I'm going to put a piece of glass on the inside. So again, use the rectangle tool. We're going to go vertical. Now, let me explain something real quick. Let me go ahead and hit the escape key. When I created this frame, right, I placed the line at the middle because that's essentially where I want the door, right, at the middle in between the walls. But I actually want the middle of the door to be aligned to the middle of the wall. And by doing the rectangle tool, using the rectangle tool and starting at the midpoint and then extruding out, that's actually not the middle of the door anymore. That's the end. That's the inside, right? That's the inside of my door. And so now what I have to do is take this door and actually move it in. Okay. And we'll end up doing that. But right now that we want to create the window, we'll use the rectangle tool. We're actually not going to go in the middle because then that's going to create more problems again. That's going to create the same exact thing. So this time we're just going to go, make sure to go to vertical. We're going to go from this side, from the front side of the door to this front side of the door. And we're going to go up. Now I can select that curve and extrude the curve. And now I'm going to go out. I think all of our windows are 1/2 inch. So 1/2 inch. Okay. And now we could go ahead and start moving everything where it belongs. Okay. So I can, let's go into ghosted view. I'll select this glass, use the move tool, and I'm going to go from midpoint right over here to the middle of that door. Now I'll select both of these and I will use move. You could also go from underneath and you see it's a lot easier to see it that way. So we'll use the move tool, grab it from the middle and right there. Now this line I know is going to annoy me, so I'm going to delete that line just because it's going to get in the way. And it's going to be visible. I don't mind leaving all of the line works, all of the line work in walls where we're not going to see the line because the geometry is over it. But if there's just loose lines, it's going to get confusing. Okay, so let's go over here. Let's go back to the shaded view. I'm going to select this glass and put it into the door glass layer. And then the same thing with my frame. I'm going to select it and put it in my door frame layer. Then I'll select both of these and I will group them. Okay. Now we're going to do one big picture window here. and essentially the same exact thing. Okay. So we'll use the rectangle tool, vertical. We'll go from one side. Notice how this time I'm actually going from the outside instead of from the midpoint. Okay. I'll select this, use the offset tool, except that this time my offset distance is only going to be 2 inches instead of 4. I don't need it to be as thick. So I'm going to go down, make sure that my cursor is offsetting inside. And then I'll go ahead and select both of these and extrude curve. And we're going to go out 2 inches. Sorry, 2 inches, enter. Okay. Then I'll use the rectangle tool. Again, let's go vertical. Go from one side to the next side. Come on. All the way up. Now I can select that curve and again, extrude curve. And this is the glass, so it's only going to be 1/2 inch. And then we move everything into place. So I'll select this, use the move command, and go from, oh, I need to go into ghost view because then I can't see. So I'll go from mid over here to mid. And then I'll hold down the shift key so that I can select the frame. Now notice that I have no mid on this side, right? There's no middle of the wall because the wall extends all the way to the face of this wall. But I do have a middle over here. So I'll use the move tool and grab it from this midpoint and move it over to that midpoint. Okay. Again, I'll go ahead and delete these lines that I no longer need. Let's go into shaded view and I will select this, move this into the door frame. Select the glass, move that into the door glass. You know what? I'm wrong. This is not door. This is a window. All right, we'll do this again. Select it, and we're going to change this into window frame. And then we'll take this glass and we'll put it into window glass. Now, what about this middle piece, right? At this point, we could put it into either one. It could either be the door frame or the window frame. I'm going to put it with the door frame, though. Change object layer. There we go. Okay. Select that line and delete it. And so now we have a door with a window, okay, along with our front door. Now, the last thing I'm going to cover is how do we add, say, a trim around the doors, okay? So the way we're going to do that is essentially creating a rectangle and then sweeping it around a profile, the profile being the door opening, okay? I'm going to use the rectangle tool and I'm going to make this 2 inches. Again, zoom out if you're not sure where the red line is, because that's your first number. So I'm going to go out 2 inches. Yep, that's actually right. And then we're going to go up. Let's go up 3/4 of an inch. Oh, I forgot to hit enter at the top. So it's 2 inches, enter. And then move the cursor up, and I'm going to go 3/4 of an inch, enter. So there's my rectangle. Okay. And then I need to create the profile for the sweep. And so I'll use the line tool and I'm going to go up, over, and then down. Enter. So now I have a set of lines. And I can now select my profile. I'm actually going to copy it. I'm not going to move it because I'm going to be using this profile quite a bit. So I want to be able to copy it very easily. So I'm going to copy this and then move this top left corner, which would end up being the inside of the trim, to the inside of the wall right there. Okay, hit enter. And then I'll go ahead and select the line. I'm going to, no, not sweep. I'm sorry, I'm going to sweep one. Okay, and now it's asking select sweep shapes. Sorry, I already had the line. Let me undo this. I already had the line selected. That's why it's jumping to the sweep shape. So let me hit the escape key. The correct way, sweep one, select the rail, which again is the line work. and then the sweep shape, which is going to be this profile. And then I'll hit enter and then enter again and then OK. Okay, there we have the door frame. However, when I click on the frame or the door trim, sorry, if I come up here, it says one open poly surface added to selection. If you remember in the previous lecture when we were talking about the sweep command, and that when we click on it, we want it to say closed poly surface. So when it's open, it means that it's not capped, right? It means that if we go from the bottom, more than likely it's going to be empty. And sure enough, there is no surface at the bottom. Now, this having open poly surfaces like this is um, is problematic because we can't use any of the Boolean commands because this is not a solid object. If you remember in one of the previous lectures when we were talking about poly surfaces and extrusions, and um, we were talking about how an object without the top and bottom surface is nothing more than just a bunch of surfaces that are taped together. Okay, it needs to be a closed polysurface. And once it's a closed polysurface, then we could use all of the massing and Boolean tools because it recognizes it as a solid surface or a solid object. Here it's empty. So what we need to do is select it and then use the command cap. Okay, and the cap is going to cap all of the open surfaces and turn it into a closed polysurface. So now that we've capped it, I will come back, deselect it, and then come back and select it again. And now it says one closed poly surface. Okay. And we have a trim. Now, again, just like the door, just like the windows, you could complete these steps over and over again until you feel comfortable and confident. But once that's done, we could actually just take this, use the copy command, and I'm going to grab it from this inside point and place it over here to that inside point, just like that. And now we have the door frame all around. Sorry, we have the door trim on both sides of the walls. Now I do want to select these and place them in the correct layer, which is door trim. So I'm going to right click and change object layer. Okay. Now you're going to want to do that to all of the doors. It's not that many. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the 2 closet doors. Oh, 5. Don't forget that door back there. Okay. So all of the doors, all of the interior doors should have this door trim. Okay. Make sure you do all of this before moving on to the next task. And that's it. Good luck, everyone.